Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Larry.
I think we were waiting for a quorum. I think we're there between those who are attending in person and those who have joined us virtually. So my name is Larry Snow, Representative Snow, one of the chairs of the Pointed Mountain State Land Authority. Will call our meeting to order, and we welcome members of the board. Thank you for joining us either way, in person or virtually. It's good to see you. And also welcome to our consultants that are going to assist us today, and also members of the public and media that may be joining us. We'd like to excuse Lieutenant Governor Henderson. She is attending to some duties of her office that create a conflict. So we recognize her position here, but want to excuse her from the meeting today. So with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which traditionally, and we carry forward as dedicating a portion of our meeting for public comment. This is a chance for members of the public to weigh in or comment subject to our rules. And so CC and Alan may ask you to help keep an eye on anyone from the public. CC, do we allow people to have joined us via Zoom to comment, or just here?
You mean people that request earlier?
Just here.
Say that again.
Yeah. Do we have anyone that's joined us on the Zoom who would like to comment? Any members of the public on Zoom? Let's go to them first.
Yeah.
If you are
No
waiting
one's-
for your hand to be raised, we don't see any indication. So now members of the public that are joining us here in this hearing room, if you like to make a comment, if you come forward or raise your hand, not seeing any indication, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is to consider the minutes of our meeting held July 13th, 2021, to consider them, and I would take a motion to approve those minutes. Mayor Walker. Motion is that we approve the minutes of said meeting. Do I have a second? Seconded by Jim. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. And CC, thank you again for supplying us the minutes as you do every meeting.
Sure.
The next item on the agenda and is to consider a Steve Kellenberg contract extension. Members of the board will recall that Steve has been working as one of our consultants with his expertise on planning, and who has been assisting the board and also the director. I'm going to turn some time to Alan to bring us up to date on this action item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the last year, Steve Kellenberg has been serving as our planning director, and he's done an outstanding job. I think, as you recall, he's got a background that is second to none, 40-year career working on some of the premier master plans around the world. In addition, an executive with the Irvine Company, so development background on large-scale development, and teaching real estate finance at USC for a number of years. Rare to find that kind of combination, and Steve has served us well with his relationships, with his expertise, putting in many hours, frankly, more than contemplated, many more than contemplated, showing a real commitment to this project and our success. And he's been a very valuable contributor. Steve's contract was for a year. It ended recently, yesterday, in fact. And so we're proposing now a contract extension for 2 years that would allow him to continue to provide services for us as we reach out to the development community, as we refine the plan and new studies come in and we incorporate the results of those studies, as we work with the development community on potential refinements to the plan moving forward. So this is a critical time and feel like Steve can be very helpful. We've given all members of the board a copy of that contract extension. At Steve's request, we are suggesting that his retainer be increased by $500 a month this year, and then the following year, another $500 a month. Kind of put that in perspective. If we were to go out and hire somebody to serve in this position, paying them full-time and with benefits, we would be paying a multiple of what Steve's going to get, and without the same level of experience. So by doing it this way, we're able to meet our budget and get experience in the kinds of large-scale development that we've been working on. So I think with that background, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the contract extension or anything else. Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. Questions from the board for Alan on this item on the agenda?
I have one, Mr. Chair. This is Steve.
Representative Handy.
Thank you very much. Alan, thinking more about our conversation yesterday as you kind of called board members and prepped them for this discussion, how do we as a board evaluate the effectiveness of a consultant? I mean, basically what we're doing here is we're going based upon the relationship that we've built with him over the last year. And but is there anything more specific how we can evaluate a consultant rather than just saying he's done a really good job and we really like him, and you know, this isn't personality specific, but I'm just thinking about the broader way. I mean, your evaluation's coming up, Alan, and the working group has developed a matrix whereby, you know, we have an opportunity to evaluate you. But it seems like we don't have a way to evaluate. It's just based upon, yeah, it sounds pretty good. And I know you're saying more than that, but does anyone have that same thinking, or is that just me?
Go ahead, Alan, respond.
I think it's a great question, and certainly need to be able to evaluate the consultant staff and make sure that we're filling the expectations that the board has. I think in this case, Steve had a pretty specific scope of work to accomplish. And we can go step by step, and have gone step by step through that scope of work to see if each piece has been satisfied. And in fact, it has, and quite successfully. Beyond that, he's done a number of things that were not included in the scope of work, including working with our working groups and the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, and you know, participating in multiple calls each week as we've worked through our process. So going back to the scope, and I don't have it in front of me, but it included developing the request for proposals, overseeing the process to select our consultants to do the planning work, working through those final stages as we did a design competition, overseeing the work of our planning team, SOM, meeting with them regularly, providing guidance, feedback on the products that have been provided, as we've reached out to the development community. He's been very helpful in identifying national developers, local developers that we could work with. Been instrumental in helping to create the advisory committee that we talked about, and in kind of our day-to-day strategizing with the board on everything from organizational structure to the framework of this plan. And so I think we've been able to go through the tasks that were outlined, plus those that weren't, that he's accomplished, and evaluate performance on each.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the broader comments and broader discussion, Alan. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Representative. Senator Stevenson, do I see your hand raised?
You do. Let me just be very, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Great. You know, I have the opportunity of working with appropriations, and that gives me, we're kind of right in the middle of going through what we are doing with all of our land use authorities in the state and the costs involved. And this, I will definitely vote for what has been proposed here today. But I think it's wise for all of us to think about what's going on in our system and what's going on overall in our economy with the cost increases we're bumping up against in lots and lots of different areas. I will tell all of you as a board, and Alan, you as a leader of this organization can be very proud of what you're doing and the way you're doing it. Of all our organizations, you are much more fiduciary than we are in the MITA and the inland port organizations right now. And I have yet to be seen what's going to take place with Utah Lake. That one does scare me just a little bit. But I think we're on a great track here, and we have been very careful in the way we've moved forward on this. Now, I'm not going to give all the credit to the board, but I think part of it's because we've been forced to be slow and very deliberative in what we do, because we still have some folks down there on that property that we can't really begin doing too much with until they're gone. So, but I just want to compliment everyone. This is, Alan, you have been a very, very good steward of the state's money in the way we've handled this. And the board, you've been very, very great stewards of the state's money also, much better than we're seeing in the other organizations currently. So I'm going to work real hard to make sure we don't get caught up in a tidal wave, because I think we're going to have to do some corrections in some of the other organizations, and which will be rather painful. So with that, you know, I will certainly support this. I've got a hard stop. I'm going to have to leave you at about 10 to 10. So I will say no more and listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thanks, Representative Handy. Let me just add one of the things. That's a good point that Representative Handy makes. And the reality is the evaluation would be conducted by his immediate supervisor, who would be our director. And I think Alan would say he hasn't conducted a formal evaluation at this point, but we hear his recommendation. The other thing I would remind the board is this contract is not, it is a term, but it is terminable. And so if there is a failure of performance, the board can take action. I, in some ways, liken what our board is to a city council. A city council relies on staff, planning staff, to make recommendations when they have to make a decision that in regard to zoning or land use planning. Steve is our staff, highly trained and educated, and brings a wealth of experience. And he's the one that helps advise us, helps advise Alan on planning issues. And I think he's an important part of the team. Further discussion on this matter? Go to Jim or Mayor?
I just wanted to say, with respect to Steve, and you know, Steve's been responsive, and he's really been in the mix for us in a way that I've appreciated. So, and I was going to echo what you said about the terminableness. Steve knows that, of course, and he's a hard worker, and you know, he's been direct and helpful, especially in the working groups. He was good to do that when he wasn't really part of his scope. So, I think he's doing a good job for us and working hard for us. And so I support keeping him on.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim?
So I would echo some of the comments that are being made. As you know, part of my job, we do hire a lot of consultants and work, quite a bit with consultants. And, you can't rate them the same way you do an employee, but you certainly know when you have one that's performing and one that's not. And are they meeting their deliverables? Are they timely? Are they listening to you? Are they conveying your best interests? Are they working as a team member? It's easy to tell when somebody's doing a good job and when they're not. And it seems like he's been doing a great job, and we've been relying upon him. And it seems to me that he's probably getting less than market value for what he's provided for us in the past. So I support that going forward, knowing that his contract would be terminal if we determined that was not his services weren't needed for the full 2 years. But, I also share, Steve, I think we have the same concern on the number of consultants and how they're going to fit together. And so, when we're ready, I would like to make a motion that would kind of bring that together with a look at that as well.
Thank you, Jim. We don't have a motion on the table right now. We've had some good discussion, good comments and questions for Alan, but we don't have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Walker.
I move that we approve the consulting contract extension with Mr. Kellenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you like to speak further on the motion?
Like I said before, I think he's done a really good job. He's provided us really great insight, experience, and some direct concepts that are, and I also actually think he's listened to us. So he's heard us when we've had issues and things that have been important to us as board members, and he's been able to take it back to the rest of the consulting team and sort of work it in. So I appreciate his work.
Thank you, Mayor. Do I have a second to that motion?
This is Mayor Ramsey. I'd be happy to second that, and I concur with what's been said. I appreciate Steve's efforts and would love to continue working with him for the next 2 years.
Thank you, Mayor Ramsey, for the second. The motion now is before us. Further discussion on the motion from any of the board members.
Is it appropriate to offer a counter motion?
It is appropriate to offer a substitute motion. Would that be your?
Yeah, that would be mine.
So we'll go to Jim Russell for a substitute motion.
Well, I would offer the same motion that we accept and extend Steve's contract, but that we devote a future meeting to having Alan help us understand the consultants, what their roles are, what their roles will be going forward, and how we're going to be using them.
Possibly a
board.
work meeting.
Yeah, a board meeting to help us understand a little better and have a little bigger picture. I support Steve's efforts and really the confidence and strength that he's given Alan and the support. But I think that we need to understand the bigger picture and how the consultants will work.
Thanks, Jim. So that's a substitute motion. We'll go to Mayor Walker. You could accept that as a friendly amendment, or we can deal with it as a substitute.
I'll accept it as a friendly amendment.
So would you like to speak to the friendly amendment?
I think it's a great concept. We definitely need to do that. Continue being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollar, but also making sure we have a clear understanding where we're going and exactly what everybody's doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So the motion has been amended by friendly amendment. The motion that's before us is that we approve item number 4, the extension of the Steve Kellenberg contract, subject to devoting some time in a work meeting or otherwise to review all of our consultants' roles and see that, make sure that the board understands each of their roles and the need for them going forward. Does that correctly state the motion? All right. Any discussion on the amended motion? Further discussion? Not seeing any hands. Jerry, Senator Stevens, did you have further discussion on that?
No, I'm waving at the light bulb or something. Thank you.
So I'm trying to keep an eye out for that hand being raised. We don't have the same level of staff here, so I need to have you if I can see you physically raise your hand.
I have a comment, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
Representative Handy,
Yeah,
discussion?
I really like this, and Jim, you bring the experience that I certainly don't have, working with these outside consultants, because one of my concerns is it seems like we have consultants consulting with consultants. And so I'd like to I really appreciate this, to tighten this up and to have a better understanding of varying roles and reporting authority. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Representative Handy. Further discussion from board members on the amended motion? Not seeing any hands. We'll place that motion for a vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Alan, for your presentation, and for board members for your discussion. Next item on the agenda, and to a large extent is the meat of our meeting today. We're excited to go to item number 5, which is looking at the stage 5, the 5th stage for the Point of the Mountain Framework Master Plan. I'm going to turn time to Alan, if you don't mind, Alan, and help lay the introduction and foundation for this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've been on a bit of a journey over the last many months to develop a framework plan for the site. And today, we're going to ask for your approval to release that final framework plan and use it as the basis for moving forward. So as you know, we've been directed by legislation that set out a number of important public objectives for us to meet. We've had extensive public input over the last several months. Over 10,000 people in the public participated through groups, stakeholder advisory committees, and open houses, surveys, and more. We've gathered and carefully considered that information that's been provided by the public. We have done significant analysis, trying to make sure that at the end of the day, the concepts that we're considering will actually perform and that will meet those values that have been outlined. And I think we can all remember what some of those are. One is that we create a place that's a great community. It's welcoming, where people of different backgrounds and stages can live and work and play. We've heard, and we want to create a place where families and friends can gather, can enjoy nice restaurants, entertainment, a chance to be in natural areas and in space, a place that thinks about the traffic issues we have and that is focused on transportation solutions with circulators and transit and more, a way that we can design so that people can commute to from the move from the site and bike and a place that appreciates the beauty of our state and in fact embraces that beauty and brings it into the site. And certainly a place that's an economic catalyst, a place that will help us do research, solve some of the problems of society, a place where new ideas can be developed and commercialized and create jobs, and where our youth can have world-class careers right here in Utah and not have to go somewhere else for that. It's a place of collaboration. So the goals have been high, and appropriately so, because this is a public site. And taking all of that input, those goals, we've worked with Skidmore, Owens & Merrill, SOM, as our planning firm. And they've been working very diligently as a team and with bringing in expertise in transportation and open space and much more to create a framework plan. You've seen it develop over the months. We've gone through the various stages and shared with you the deliverables from each stage. But today, Pete Kindle from SOM will be going through kind of the final framework plan. Now, I'll just make a couple of quick comments. One, We call it a framework plan intentionally because this is giving us clear direction going forward, gives us something to work with. But I think we can all rest assured that there will be changes on the ground. What we see on the ground will be somewhat different from what we see in the plan. It's just the nature of changing markets and ideas and different people being involved. So there's flexibility built into this, but it is an attempt to reflect the values of the people and good cutting edge common sense planning principles. So I think with that, Representative, maybe we can turn it to SOM.
Mike on here. Thanks for that introduction. Everything you said, well said about our mission and objectives. We are happy to have Peter Kimball with us in person. And when I walked into the room this morning, this gentleman that looked familiar came over and said hello. And the reason he only looked familiar is we've only seen him on Zoom, or I have up to this point. But it's good to have you here in person. And we want you to know how much we appreciate you and your team in helping us arrive at this framework plan. So with that, we'll turn the time over to you, Peter. Let me get your mic on here.
I think it's on.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Alan and Chairman Snow. On behalf of SOM, I'm very excited to present the framework plan today. As Alan mentioned, this is the result of over 7 months of work. And so we wanted to thank you and the board and the entire team for their support and their guidance during this process. We're going to present today an executive summary that has been transferred to the Pointer Mountain State Land Authority. This summarizes the framework plan and the results of these 7 months. It's organized around the key vision elements that were defined by the working groups last year. And I do also want to acknowledge the incredible work of the consultant team that assisted us in many areas. The essence of the master plan is to create an economic catalyst for the Wasatch Front. This is really the core idea behind the project, the core mission of the project. So that has been the driving concept behind the plan. And we really see this as an important regional project to establish a stronger economic base for Utah. We also want it to reflect and be uniquely Utah, to reflect the vibrancy of the cities and Utah's unique ecosystems. We started with an idea of a 15-minute city, that the site could be designed in a way that it's a live-work community, that many services and jobs are offered on the site in addition to residential. We have stayed true to this idea throughout the 7 months. And underpinning and supporting that idea is an idea of a complete community, a mixed-use community. And that really is an essential component of innovation districts around the world in the 21st century. An idea that you can live close to work and that there is workforce housing provided for innovation sector workers. We also had an idea of a one-car community. And you'll see in the plan that the transportation plan encourages this idea of walkability, bicycle access, as well as transit access to Front Runner and other regional transportation systems. And then finally, an idea about regional connections. And you'll all recognize this slide, the river to range concept. Because of the site's unique location in the Wasatch Front, there's an opportunity to connect the mountains to the valley with an open space connection. So we think that's a really important regional initiative. As Alan mentioned, the process has included extensive public outreach, many public meetings, many people submitting comments. The team has incorporated many of these comments into the plan, and you will have noticed through the different evolutions of the plan that we have responded to many of these comments. in the different iterations of the framework plan. So we're pleased to present today the final Stage 5 framework plan, which is illustrated here, looking from the southeast over I-15. And I'll walk you through the specifics of the plan, but you can see the extent and character of the development. And we'll talk about some of the key ideas. So a quick overview. The illustrative plan is shown here. You can see the main boulevard, Porter Rockwell Boulevard, running through the middle of the site. What we call the hub, which is organized here just to the right of the Porter Rockwell Boulevard, and it includes Central Park. And then, of course, the River to Range Park, which is one of the major structural elements of the plan. And this creates a series of neighborhoods and development districts, each of which are programmed in different ways, as we've talked about before. So the final framework plan is shown here, a relatively simple drawing, but a very important drawing. The gray is the developable area. That's 350 acres approximately, about 58% of the site area. Open space is about 142, about 23.5% of the site area. And then the white is indicated, indicates the roads. That's about 18.5% of the site area. So these percentages are consistent with standard master planning objectives in a commercial environment. So the plan is sound from a commercial standpoint. We also have a very rich land use mix, which is shown here. The blue indicates commercial and office related functions. The yellow and browns indicate residential. We have about 40% of the land devoted to residential, about 60% to commercial development. And then the red, of course, is retail and other service functions. There are a couple of civic uses on site. I'll get into those in a little more detail. We have about 16.2 million square feet of GFA is currently estimated. As Alan said, this plan is very flexible and can be, will change depending on market forces, but we are very comfortable with this number that yields an FAR of about 1.06. That's an appropriate density for this part of the valley. The residential population, we're estimating at about 14,800 people. Again, that's a target number today that can be modified as we move forward. So just a little bit on some of the districts. We have 7 districts. This is what we call the hub. This is right in the middle of the project. This is our mixed use district, our highest density district. You can see Central Park there in the upper right, the River to Range going through the middle, what we call the Hive, the Innovation Accelerator, and the little red square here is the South BRT station. You can also see the North BRT station in the upper right. So the hub really is serviced very well by the BRT line. So the highest density portions of the project are best served by the BRT. The hub will be the central gathering place, the central social space for the project. So we're really excited to create this civic amenity. To the north is the Canal District. We see this as a lower density area that's more focused on R&D, maybe more speculative office, lower rise buildings as shown here. These will be flex type buildings that will support the innovation mission for the project. To the south is what we call the Ridge District. This is our institutional focused district. So we're hoping and anticipating that there might be some large institutional tenants that come into this area. You can see the existing prison buildings, the 3 historic original prison buildings right in this location. That's really the center of the Ridge District. Right across from that will be a little park. Every district is organized around a central park or a small park. So each district has a similar structure to it. And then we have 3 residential districts. This is the most westerly one, what we call the West River District. So now we're getting over towards the Jordan River. And again, you can see that Central Park, which will serve the residents of this area, a little bit of neighborhood retail, And then these blue triangles indicate what we call window parks. And these are little view corridors out to the mountains. We really wanted to have the plan connect to the surrounding views and to the surrounding mountains. And then probably one of the most important districts and also one of the largest is the Wasatch District. This is our office district immediately west of I-15. So this is our easterly office district. This is really a headquarters office environment. So we're hoping to attract really key tenants, corporations, people that really want to make long-term investments into the innovation community here in Utah. And that'll be characterized by buildings like this, 4 to 5 stories in height, research and office, front of house, but also back of house, really rich ground plane with strong commitment to pedestrian connections through the plan. As I mentioned, the plan is organized around the 6 key vision elements that were given to us or developed by the working groups last fall. And we've really tried to stay true to these as we have developed the plan. The first one is focused on community. This one's really about the interrelationship of the land uses and how people will occupy this project. And to that end, again, to emphasize the land use mix, about 40% residential, about 60% non-residential, with these retail and mixed use hubs in different areas. We're anticipating a major retail and entertainment destination to deliver this idea of community. Here you see the retail plan. And we're anticipating about 670,000 square feet of retail, mostly focused here in the middle of the plan. We want it to be central in the physical site to support this idea of a 15-minute city. But you can also see these corollary neighborhood retail hubs and also district retail hubs that are organized throughout the plan. In different districts. So the nice distribution of retail. And again, the idea is that you can meet your daily needs, you can work and have lunch within pretty close proximity of your office. Here's an image of what we hope to deliver for the Central Park, a mixed space that can be used for a variety of things. Supporting the idea of community, of course, is the residential. And we anticipate a variety of residential types. And that'll be one of the focuses moving forward, is getting more specific on the different residential mix. And then, of course, as I mentioned, every district and every neighborhood is organized around a small park. These are generally 1 to 2 acres in size. So, substantial in terms of the amenity that it will provide for the immediate residents and workers. And here's a rendering of the project looking to the southeast. So you can see the actual point of the mountain there in the background, the foothills and the upper areas of the southern part of Draper. You can see that river to range connection in the BRT bridge across I-15 coming in to the Innovation District here. We've indicated a little sculpture here, this little globe. We're hoping that that can become a feature moving forward for the project, maybe the subject of a design competition, kind of a landmark for the project. And then in the foreground here, you can see Central Park and some of the buildings in the immediate area around Central Park. What you can't quite see here is the 2 BRT stations. There'll be one right about here at this Hive building, this taller building. And I think this rendering also shows nicely the approximate heights of the building. So in the core area, it'll be 6 to 8 stories on average, maybe some of them getting up to 10 to 12 stories. But in essence, it's a fairly low-rise project, but we think it's a very effective use of the land in terms of its application across the site. The second key vision element was transit. This was a critical aspect of our planning. We anticipated and planned for a series of smaller districts that has been realized in the final framework plan. The transit master plan is shown here. And you can see the red line coming from the north. This will be the BRT line that'll connect to the Draper Front Runner Station. There'll be 2 stops on the site, the North BRT Station and the South BRT Station, both proximate to the middle of the project. And the dotted red lines indicate the 10-minute walking radius from those BRT stations. So you can see about 80% of the development parcels are within a 10-minute walk of BRT, 100% within 15-minute walk. The yellow line and orange line indicate 2 options for what we call the circulator. And the circulator is really the third critical piece of the transportation system. So we have front runner, number 1, BRT, number 2, circulator, number 3. We're showing 2 options, and this will be the focus of further study moving forward, which option is preferable. One is a loop, which is shown by the yellow line, and the other is essentially a crossing pattern shown by the orange line. Each of these would run in a dedicated lane. So these are free moving, potentially autonomous vehicles that provide connections to every district. So you can live in one district, you can get on the circulator, you can go to the BRT station and catch that BRT up to Draper, Front Runner, and ultimately up and down the valley. So a very seamless series of transportation ideas that will connect this whole project together. Here's an image of what we call the gold standard BRT. We've talked about this before in different presentations. So it'll essentially operate in its own 40-foot right-of-way. So the operational capacity and speed will be similar to a light rail line. The finish in the stations and the vehicles will be similar to light rail. But we have flexibility in the routing and also the headway and technical implementation of the BRT. The circulator is shown here. This is a smaller vehicle, again, runs on its own little path, but will unify the whole project together and connect it to BRT. The fourth element of the transit concept is a very important part of the project, and that's the pedestrian and bicycle circulation plan, which is shown here. As you can see, it's a very extensive mobility network. The blue indicates bikeways that are marked on streets. We also have additional bikeways that will be shared lanes with automobiles. The red lines indicate trails that will run through the greenway system. And one of the key functions of the greenway system is to provide this trail network. So you can actually move through the whole project without getting on a roadway through this trail network, and then 31 connections to the bike system. So a very comprehensive trail and bike network. And you can see the connections to the Jordan River Trail to the northwest, and then the Porter Rockwell Trail to the southeast. So we're extremely excited about this concept of the plan. Pedestrian and bike links will be, again, really special, narrow, pedestrian only or bike only connections through the plan, primarily green links. We think this is a real feature of the project and what young tech workers are really looking for. The road network is shown here in the black lines. So we have up to 14 potential future connections to the surrounding road network. Of course, being a prison, one of the challenges of the site is that it's not connected to the existing road network. So I think that's a key objective of the plan moving forward, is to reintegrate this piece of land into the Draper road system and Bluffdale road system. Not all of these connections will be made right away, but we anticipate over the next 10 years or so, many of these connections will be realized. The pink area in the middle is a pedestrian priority zone. This is an 80-acre part of the project, a very significant part of the project that will be pedestrian priority, meaning the connections and links will be designed primarily for pedestrians, but there'll still be service and vehicle access to the core area. So we're very excited about this concept as well. And this shows some of the details that may be realized in that pedestrian priority zone, the green passageways, the restaurants and other amenities and features. This is a rendering of what we call the business main street. So just to get everyone oriented, this is a view looking east from right by the North BRT station along what we call the North Loop Road. So you can see in this view, the BRT line, as I mentioned, in that dedicated right-of-way, the blue lanes to the left. That BRT station would be right where this bus is in the background. And then the vehicle road and potentially the circulator is shown to the right, and you can see the generous pedestrian links and then the view east to the Wasatch. Again, these are this part of the project will have some of the higher buildings. You can see the height of some of those buildings here, 4 to 6 stories in general, but bumping up occasionally to 8, 10, or even 12 stories on a couple of buildings. The third KVE was economic growth. This is a really important and probably the fundamental goal of the project. So regional business, tech, and innovation catalyst. Each district has been programmed to accommodate economic development or residential, which will support that economic development. Here you can see some of the acreages and capacities of those districts. The Wasatch, for instance, is 122 acres just by itself, with potentially 3.5 million square feet of GFA. Density is focused around the BRT station in alignment with transit-oriented development principles, or TOD principles. This is also an important idea that focuses those higher density and taller buildings right next to transit, where it's best served by non-vehicular transportation options. The mixed-use cores are shown here. This is part of the innovation vision that, again, there's not only office and innovation and institutional development here, but also retail and commercial development that supports this idea of a 15-minute city. The smart city framework will contribute to this. So this is delivering digital infrastructure to the project, using that loop road as a trunk line, as indicated by the purple line. And the district parks or district hubs can serve as data hubs for each of those districts with connections outward to surrounding municipal assets. The smart city concepts will be advanced moving forward. There's many different components to the smart city idea, but essentially it's about providing digital and information infrastructure to the project in a way that supports both the community goals, but also the business and economic goals. So we're excited to see this piece of the project move forward. And the objective around the economic vision is that the smart city ideas, the key vision elements, and the performative sustainable goals all contribute to an idea of a supportive new innovation district for the valley. Here's a view of the Wasatch District. So this gives you a really good sense of how this particular district may develop down the road. You can see I-15 here on the left, point of the mountain there on the upper left. You can see the Wasatch District Park, which is a large park here right in the middle. This organizes this whole district. A couple other features that you'll notice is some of the buildings will be a little bit taller, and the building concepts here are exactly that. They're just concepts to illustrate the density and development potential of the project. We imagine every developer or participant in the project will bring their own architectural ideas. But one idea shown here was to get buildings up a little bit taller so you get that visibility from I-15. You can also see our window parks here very clearly in the foreground, this triangular space that can offer, can act as a social space And then you can see the parking garages are paired together to minimize their visual impact, and they're tucked behind the building. So this was a key part of the planning of the whole project, so that when you move along the public roadway system, you're not seeing parking all the time, but you're actually seeing the front doors of buildings and retail. So this is a pretty exciting image. The fourth KVI was around innovation. This had to do with really creating a culture of creativity and ingenuity. So we do see an institutional presence here. The exact nature of that presence is still to be determined. We also see, as I mentioned, cross-industry accelerators, little innovation hubs within these office districts. You can see two of them indicated here, one at the South BRT station, then one in the Wasatch District to the east. And again, these will be special buildings that can have a educational function. It can have a research and development function, or it can have a simple office function. Part of the innovation vision is to provide educational opportunities on the site. There's 3 areas indicated here in the plan, these civic functions. We do anticipate a K-8 school shown in the left-hand side of the plan where it says school. Again, these 2 larger parcels to the south have been tentatively identified as institutional or anchor tenants. And then there is an on-site fire academy that will remain. We anticipate some city services being present in the project, and potentially also a church that would be located in the residential area, which is indicated by the red dot. And then part of the innovation idea is that the actual delivery of the project, the physical environment, is supportive of that innovation idea, and that every act of construction and implementation is innovative in unto itself. The pedestrian priority zone is an innovative idea that will create this hub at the core of the project. And the realization of this vision through design guidelines, which will be developed moving forward for the entire project. And that'll include buildings, open space, and infrastructure. So we can be sure that the delivery and execution of the project meets the standards that we've set here. This rendering shows the retail area, which is looking north towards that North BRT station. You can see that taller building in the background. So we anticipate this to be a very innovative regional attraction focused on retail, entertainment, family activities, but also amenities for the tech workers that will be occupying the offices and living here. This view shows what we've tentatively identified as the Hive. This is a tall building right at the South BRT station. Of course, the architecture is merely illustrative at this point. You can see our globe or sculptural element that would anchor that river to range park right where it meets the Central Park connection. The circulator is shown here, the South BRT station shown in the middle background there. So this will be a significant point in the plan, this area where BRT, the river to range, and the circulator all come together around this innovation hub. Last couple of sections I wanted to cover, sustainability. There was a real insistence from the working groups and the public on sustainability, that the project needed to really represent the potential for sustainable initiatives in the Wasatch Front. We focused on 5 components that we thought were especially relevant to Utah and to the Wasatch Front. Those are shown here. And we anticipate and plan and believe that we can deliver the following outcomes around these 5 elements. So about 1/3 of a reduction in vehicle miles traveled over a conventional development. We know that 100% of the people in the project, whether that's residents or workers, will be within 1 block of a trail system or within 5-minute walk of some sort of transit, either BRT or circulator. So that's pretty remarkable. We anticipate 10,000 charging stations by year 10 and an overall reduction in transportation carbon by about 50%. So we think these are substantial mobility outcomes that we're comfortable putting forward as objectives for the plan. Around ecology, 142 acres of open space, as we've talked about. Everybody will be within a 2-minute walk of a park or open space. And about half that park acreage will be more naturalized landscapes. So these are not irrigated mowed environments. These are native Utah landscapes. And about a 25% increase over conventional development in terms of carbon sequestration. In terms of energy and carbon, we're anticipating about 50% less operational carbon and 20% embodied carbon in the buildings. This will be really contingent on our partnerships with developers moving forward. They're the ones that will be building these buildings. So we will make sure that these objectives are built into the design guidelines. And then there's a potential for further reductions using offsite renewables or other offsets that can be determined down the road. I think we all know that water is probably one of the most important issues in Utah today. So we anticipate and are planning on all of the surface runoff being filtered naturally, about 40% reduction in indoor water use and retaining 100% of the stormwater on site. And then waste, raising the standard for waste recycling and construction waste diversion over business as usual or conventional development. Many of these goals and outcomes really have high benefit for relatively low cost. They're simply built into the plan. And I think that's one of the real benefits of this framework plan. And through the support of the board and the public, we've set a strong standard for the sustainable goals. Some of them require further study. Some, as I mentioned, will be done in partnership with individual parcel developers in the future. But we think many of these can be important near-term outcomes that have a low first cost. In terms of regional collaboration, which was the sixth and last vision element, this really has to do with how the project will fit in regionally. What's its contribution from a regional standpoint? And I think in addition to the economic benefits, there's also cultural benefits. The plan is based on some of the cultural history of Utah. We use the Plat of Zion as our starting point for the subdivision of the site. So there's that cultural connection. Water, as I mentioned, is not simply an issue for us on this particular site, but it's a regional issue. And this project really needs to set an example for how to best manage water moving forward into the 21st century. We anticipate that the water will be managed and cleansed on site through the River to Range Park. So the River to Range Park is not simply a recreational connection or a visual amenity. It actually has a functional purpose to help us clean that stormwater. And the streets design will also contribute to the stormwater management through green streets and other sustainable green infrastructure. There's potential at the lower end of the project. The site slopes from the southeast to the northwest. We anticipate some sort of detention area. It may not have actual standing water like this image, but it could. But this will be driven purely by the stormwater management vision and goals. We've also connected the site outward, again, with this idea of reconnecting this important piece of land to its community and to its region. We've aligned many of the parks and view corridors with key peaks, both to the east and to the west. A nice little detail in the plan. And you can see here the open space and public realm plan. As I mentioned, 142 acres approximately, and a variety of different types of spaces. So some larger open spaces that can be used for recreation and regional connectivity, but also I think a very rich mix of smaller spaces as well. This view is from the western side of the project and is really meant to show the residential neighborhoods. You can see quite clearly here in the foreground, the River to Range Park with some of those detention areas that we talked about. Also, a significant asset I haven't mentioned yet is this community park, which will be sports focused. That'll provide ball fields, football fields, soccer fields, baseball fields, and other active sports that's immediately connected to the River to Range Park. So anyone can use this community park and simply ride their bike into the project from Draper or other communities, and they'll have full access to that, to those resources. You can see in the right foreground the approximate scale of the residential development, again, 4 to 6 stories on average, but some of the parcels will be actually lower than that with townhomes or garden apartments. And then you can see that K through 8 school here in the, where my cursor is, abutting the neighborhood park there, but also connected to the River to Range Park. So those students can both get to school using the park system, but also have those amenities available to them at lunch or during their recess. And then finally, just to close, what we call Parks for All, or the open space network. And we know that for an innovation district to succeed, the project needs to be amenitized appropriately. So using the idea of ecological connectivity, the trail system that we've already talked about, really begins to give us this idea of amenities through the park system. As I said, many of them have different functions. Some are more active, some are larger, some are smaller, some are more passive. The River to Range will have different characteristics as shown here. Some will be more for sports, some will be for stormwater management. And here you get a sense of the details of some of those parks. So here's the bottom of the River to Range, nice trail networks and different naturalized landscaping. Here's what we hope is the character of some of that. The Central Park is shown here. This, again, is the primary gathering space for the project, about 6.8 acres in size, with a major event lawn in the center. This is the Wasatch Park, also a fairly large park with, again, similar event lawn. And then finally, this view of Central Park looking to the southeast. You can see a band playing maybe on a typical Saturday afternoon, families out. You can see the ground floor uses around the park will be restaurants. You can see the retail district in the background to the right with our sculptural element in the River to Range Park, the globe, and then that hub building in the background with the point of the mountain ridge behind. So this idea of connection and view and gathering space to support the overall mission of economic development for the project is quite important. So I will leave it there. Open it up to questions, Mr. Snow, or any of the board members.
Thank you, Peter. Well done. Comments from the board or questions for Peter? Go to Jim.
So thank you, Peter. I just had a question. I've seen this presentation a lot of times, and I'm just wondering if there's some high points. Has anything significantly changed since the last presentation?
I believe the last presentation was stage 4, right? I think in terms of the land use mix, in terms of development numbers, no, it has not changed significantly.
Just more
Well-
detail and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of development of the details, the renderings are new. A lot of the clarifications and elaboration around the key vision elements is what we've been focused on in stage 5. We did have a series of requests and recommendations from Alan and his team about refinements, but they were relatively minor.
And I just want to thank you and your team. We talked a little bit earlier about consultants and how do you know when they've done a good job. You've done a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time. You've been very responsive to the requests and worked well with us and with the owners and listening to our requests and being responsive, and you've provided a great product. So thank you very much. Appreciate your work.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jim, coming from you in your position. I think that means a lot. I would remind the board that we asked Peter and the SOM team to put this on a really short time frame. And I agree with Jim that you folks have stepped up and helped focus on our effort here. And we appreciate it. Could we go to the slide, Peter, one of the last ones that shows all of the principles and the elements? You understand my question? It kind of, as we went through,
The
it
KVEs?
fashioned them on the left side of the screen. It was on as you went through.
I'm not sure which slide you're referring to.
Towards the end, as you, yes, those frames showing the principles and yes, right there.
Like that one?
The new vision or the key vision elements.
Oh, sorry. Let me find it.
Okay,
Oh,
this
there
one.
we go.
The principles on the left, that those became your guideposts. Those were as I understand it, that was built into the legislation and was the request of the board for that those principles be embodied in the plan. Am I right about that?
The working groups defined 6 key vision elements. So in this case, economic growth was one of those. They provided us with that text on the left. What we did through our different public meetings and conversations with you and Alan's team is to define the principles in the middle.
Right.
So those are things we developed together through this process.
I'm using the wrong terminology. The key vision elements on the left, this one is economic growth.
Yeah,
Do you remember how many key vision elements there were?
there were 6.
Okay. And I was thinking they were enumerated in this slide, but I'm wrong about this.
I can go to that slide.
The first.
Find that. Hold on. There it is.
Yes.
Yeah, so these were established. Alan can speak to whether these were part of the authorizing legislation. But these were basically the starting point for the
So my
project.
question is, Peter, given your experience with SOM and beyond, would you comment on the fact that this is a state project and our ability to focus on these elements versus a private developer who is more interested in maximizing profits? Did you find that the fact that this was a state project provided more flexibility to focus on those elements?
Well, I think what really distinguished this project was knowing that it was a state project, and that gave us a little more room to look into many of these elements that the public said they wanted and the working group said they wanted. So yes, I would say we had more time and more encouragement from you and from the leadership team to investigate what this really meant in terms of the physical design. And I think having that opportunity makes this project different from a typical commercial project. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. Other questions, comments from the board?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Handy.
Yeah, Peter, absolutely amazing. I'm blown away by this. I've seen a million presentations, and I haven't seen anything quite like this where you've encompassed the graphics and the planning. So it's just a knock your socks off presentation. Of course, it participated in as various elements came together, but to see the full presentation is just mind blowing. And when we get to a minute, we'll talk about the open house on Thursday and with Muriel's team and how you'll be displaying that for the public, but it'll be great. But here's my question. And by the way, thank you for pronouncing Zion correctly. We like that. I do have a question about, you said a 50% carbon reduction, and I can talk to you more about this on Thursday. I assume you'll be there, but how is that calculated? I mean, you take a master plan and you talked about 14,000 or so at build out in the residential. I haven't heard a number about how many, workers we think will be in and out of there. And of course, the way that we work is changing, and you've had to make some assumptions. But just quickly, how did you calculate the 50% carbon reduction?
Well, we have a sustainable expert, Arthi Gowda. She will actually be at the open house on Thursday.
Great.
So that'll be great. We can do a deep dive on sustainability.
Great. Yeah.
The carbon reduction, there's two sides to carbon. One is embodied, as I mentioned, and the other is operational carbon. And Arthi really was the one who developed those numbers. We wanted to keep it, I won't say modest. We want the aspiration, of course, to be very aspirational. But we also need to keep in mind the state of the industry and the state of the art here in Utah, but generally in the nation. So we think these are based on sound, sustainable design practices, things that we're doing at SOM all the time. So the 20%, I think it was 20% operational and 30% embodied, we think can be achieved through fairly reasonable and easily implementable design strategies in the building through material use, through construction techniques, through detailing. So we think they're commercially viable today. And as I said, we can always raise the bar as we move forward if the market supports that idea, or if the board wants to raise that bar.
Yeah. There's absolutely no criticism. It's just a question of interest. I'll be happy to take a deeper dive with her. I think that's just fascinating. The other thing is a couple other things, Mr. Chair, quickly. I loved the smart city concept. I had an exposure to that, as Alan knows, and others a few years ago. And I love what you've done with that, the modular vehicular, which is what I saw in Columbus, Ohio, when I went to see their smart city demonstration. That's going to be really, really amazing. The final question is about these buildings, these, you didn't use the term, but I will, but these LED certified type buildings. And this is maybe to Mayor Walker, that will require some kind of an ordinance adjustment or direction from Draper City, correct? To ensure, or how is that? How do we ensure that developers are building to those standards?
Maybe I could jump in here if that would be okay.
Yeah, good, Steve.
Yeah, there's so part of the next step in our process is to take a number of the concepts that Peter has presented today, and I want to emphasize the term concepts, and because you saw a number of transportation innovations, we talked about smart city. You had a very good question about sustainability and how do we actually get to some of these goals. Well, some of these really have yet to be determined. We need to be clear about that. And that over the next several months, we're going to be embarking on some refined studies on, for instance, sustainability, and really getting into some modeling to really answer your question in more detail. What does it really take to get to a 50% carbon reduction? How much of that is transportation? How much of that is buildings? Which buildings are going to give us the best reductions for the lowest cost? And of course, there are economic implications to a lot of these concepts. And so the next step will try to flesh out some of those economic implications to make sure that we can deliver, on these promises. And there might, in the end, be some trade-offs between some of these things that we will bring to you, and you will have to help us make those decisions. But the short answer to your question is we will develop design guidelines, which will include not only built form and landscape, but also sustainability criteria that the district developers, as well as the individual vertical builders, will be required to utilize those guidelines. And then there will be a design review process that will determine whether they've been consistent and compliant with those guidelines or not. And that will all happen before the projects are turned over to the city.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Thanks, Steve. That's it for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And if I may add, Mr. Handy, we also have submitted, the full report is actually about 600 pages long. You're just seeing the executive summary today. There's a lot more information in there on how we arrived at a lot of these more technical conclusions. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to look through that document in the future.
Thank you. And I might also add, Representative Handy, that as we move forward, there will be a fairly complex set of development agreements with developers, covenants that will be recorded, and there will be in place agreements with Draper City to essentially be a partner in making certain that the plans that we approve will continue through the development of this project. It's going to be a close cooperative effort and a close partnership with the municipality. It has to be. And that's one of the reasons I think Mayor Walker is part of this board. And he can speak for himself on this, but Draper City has been involved in the process. And I suspect they will continue to be, to make sure that there's a continuation of these principles and these guidelines. Further discussion to the plan or questions for Peter. Mayor Ramsey, oh, I see you have your hand up. I missed it because of the background, but let's go to you, Mayor Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. If I may, Peter, I'm really impressed with what you've got put together here, and I appreciate this presentation. So I had part of it playing on my phone, and although we can have access to this, I took screenshots of lots of it because it's very, very easy to show people if I have it in my phone. And so there's just so much good information, and I think you've got a beautiful design here. And I understand that this is a living document and that this will, have changes that come about. And I think to Steve's point, these are concepts. That being said, I love the concepts that have been come up with, and I appreciate that. I did want to just mention, going back to what Representative Snow was saying as we looked at the key vision elements of community, transit, economic growth, innovation, sustainability, and collaboration. It was this board that came up with those priorities. It was this board that determined those were our key objectives for this land that we wanted to come up with. And so I also just want to give a shout out and a nod and an expression of gratitude to the board for all the work that's been done. We've had a lot of experts come on board over the last year who have really helped us move it to this point, but there was a couple of years of preliminary work getting us to this point as we started with a blank slate and tried to figure out where to start and where to go. And this really has been a collaborative effort that, for me, after, we're more than 3 years into this now, after all that time, it really is quite rewarding to see it reach this point. So I just want to express gratitude to everyone who had a part in making this happen, and to point out that these key vision elements actually were the choice that the board put forward. And then all of the collaborative efforts of the working groups and the public who have weighed in and participated and helped guide this process, invaluable. I appreciate it. But there's been significant leadership, and I just want to give a shout out to that. So thank you to everyone who's had a hand.
Thank you, Mayor Ramsey. Representative Handy, you have another question. Your hand is up, or a
Oh,
comment?
I'll get it down. Sorry. It's on a lower. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Further questions from the board or comments? Let me go to Mayor Walker. Mayor?
Thank you. It's awesome to finally see this plan come together, and you know, I chair the Pete Suazo Utah Athletic Commission, so I'm going to quote Mike Tyson when he said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." COVID was really a good punch in the face for our planning team, so I'm impressed that we were able to kind of roll with that and go forward, you know, with the concepts. A couple of things. You have to have a plan, and we can't do anything without it. I think as we come forward with this plan, now we're able to really start moving and preparing for what we want to do. I think a key element for me in this plan is its flexibility. We have the pictures, we have the drawings, but we have the flexibility to really do in the concepts and the innovation in the district areas what will come. And for us to say what it will be is sort of, you know, difficult, because we know there's a lot of other forces and things that will go along. I like the concepts that we have. I think the team has done a good job in the concepts. I'm still convinced that there's a huge entertainment opportunity for us there. I'd love to see a major league stadium of some sort with the entertainment district innovated, connected, and tied in with those ball fields and places. Something that, you know, that you can have as a community, but also as a great gathering spot. We always talk about in real estate, location. And this is certainly a great location. It's bounded by I-15, Bangor Highway. And then the next elements that are really awesome are our connection to transit. And I know as we look at this development, and I've always said, if we have to do it where everyone drives here by car, I don't want to do it. And so I love how we've taken this concept of making it so the car is not the king in this endeavor. We have Front Runner already next to it. The state's made some amazing investments. My hat's off, Lowry, and to my fellow legislators, our fellow legislators on the committee. You guys have put money into double tracking Front Runner. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to make this project go. And so the vision's been great. We have Front Runner. We have bus rapid transit coming through this site and connecting over. Could you go to that River to the Range slide really quick?
The view?
Yeah, the one I like the most, the green flowing one.
Sure.
But this concept is really unique for us because we're figuring out how to bring people to this site or get them out if they live there in ways that don't involve them having to drive. But this concept of the River to Range, we have an amazing trail system in the state of Utah. If you go on the Jordan River Trail, it extends from Ogden essentially to Provo and really all the way over to Provo Canyon. It's one of the longest continuous paved trail systems in the country. This ties that trail to our Porter Rockwell Trail on the other side, which really parallels the UTA corridor. Another connection, that trail goes south, and ultimately in the next couple of months, we'll connect to the Murdoch Canal Trail. People can literally use these active transportation corridors to move around in ways that hopefully will change the way we do things. The advent of e-bikes, I know I feel like I'm an e-bike salesman because I kind of am, but you can live close to this within 5-6 miles with an e-bike, or 7 or even 10, and you can legitimately commute into this site in a safe way, in a way that doesn't involve driving. And so I think the quality of life is always a thing we talk about with these concepts. One of the things we've tried to do in my city in consideration of this project is the open space we've preserved. And if you look at what we've done in Draper with our good partner, Salt Lake County, we've been able to preserve almost 5,000 acres of open space. but 121 miles of dirt trail, but even a lot of paved trail. We just connected the Port of Rockwell Trail to Lehigh. We've created this area for quality of life so that these companies, when they come, they're going to be able to hop on this trail, come over, be in Corner Canyon, Lehigh stepped up and built some amazing connections as well. I love that concept. The bus rapid transit concept is innovative, it's flexible, and it gives the opportunity for us to move people around. The other concept that I think is important that we keep in mind as we go forward, and Lowry said it really best, is we don't have to do this on the timeline of a traditional development. In other words, we don't have to just open it up and have everybody start developing it. We can be strategic with this plan. We can say, okay, let's find this innovative, maybe it's biotech, maybe it's something like that. We can go focus, and we don't have to be so profit driven that most developments are. We have that flexibility to pick these kind of things and then develop it along. I mean, I think the concept of being able to move slowly and methodically, with the true goal being raising the economic tide in Utah. Because that's always been my concept, that we would do something here that would raise the economic tide for everyone in Utah, not just my community, but all the communities around us. And with this plan, we've got this flexibility. So I appreciate the things you've heard me say some over and over. And I do believe in open space, and I do think we have a lot of it here and a lot of it around. And I think those are great concepts. I support this going forward simply because I think it does give us the immense flexibility we need. And it is a plan that has shown some flexibility over the punch in the face that COVID was. We're able to really keep moving and go along. I know people have asked me, well, do you think people are going to go back to work in offices? And, I don't know if we really know that, but I do know that a lot of them are. And I do know a lot of people are ready to go back to work and not be at home. Some people aren't, but this is going to give us, as we move with our flexibility as an entity and as the state being the owner, to really just take the plan and build the pieces as we kind of see it most benefiting Utah. So that's what I'm excited about going forward. So I appreciate all your good work, Steve, everybody that's been involved, Aaron, and all the times that she's had to listen to me talk about stadiums and open space and whatnot. But it's been a good process. And again, it's the beginning, but you got to have a plan, and we have one now.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Great summary and great overview. I would remind the board that last month we hit 2-year anniversary of hiring our director. And since that time, our board, under his direction, and as we've had our consultants, have been heavily involved in the planning process. What is this to be? What is it to look like? And how should we move forward with the plan? We've invested as a board heavily our time and our effort and our energy in arriving at this point in time, this plan. And I agree and join with the Mayor Walker, Peter, in congratulating SOM, you and SOM, in incorporating these elements that we felt so strongly about. And I think we have had some latitude that the private sector doesn't always enjoy. And the mayor mentioned that, but oftentimes in the private sector, the land is financed and they're working against time and interest and holding costs to move it as quickly as possible, to design as quickly as possible, maximize profits, get in and get out. We're not under those same constraints. The constraints we're under is operating under for the benefit of our state, for the people that live close by and residents throughout the state. So you've helped us arrive in incorporating those elements into this plan. We appreciate it. I failed to mention at the beginning of the meeting that we're also really pleased to have Erin Talkington with us. And usually we see Erin always on Zoom, and she's always been attentive. And thank you for all of your support and for what you have brought to the process. The last thing I want to say is, if you look at who we have contracted with for this work, our consultants, We believe that this development is world-class, and we've gone to world-class talent to help us support the effort. And I think that was a decision we made early on, and I think it was the right decision. So are there any other comments from the board? Let me just say, board members, you'll notice that this matter is on our agenda for action. And the action we would anticipate taking is to approve the Point Framework Master Plan, this stage 5, that has been presented here today, so that we can move forward and we can prepare and finalize the rollout. So I would entertain a motion if someone would consider care to make that.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Walker.
I move that we approve this master plan and launch forward on this great endeavor.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you wish to speak further on the motion?
I just want to say that, we're very fortunate. I think that a lot of the world's problems can really become Utah solutions. We have a unique opportunity here with this project to bring something that can solve a lot of problems. There's technologies, there's medical devices, there's all the kinds of things that we could do here that could really sort of change the world. And we're fortunate in Utah to have the good workforce, collaborative effort amongst our governments, the ability for people to see into the future, the ability for people to appreciate the current present situation and sort of mold it together with what we need to do going forward. We're going to have an opportunity here to have high quality housing. We're going to have an opportunity here to have high quality employment, high quality recreation, high quality opportunity. I'm grateful that to have been a part of this process over the years. I think our future is nothing but bright here. We have great leadership in our state, our legislature, our county governments, our city governments, I might add. And I think that the good news is the future is bright for us. And this is a great example of what we can do when we work hard together and are methodical. So I'm excited. I appreciate all your efforts, all my fellow board members. Everybody's got great perspectives and unique ideas and ways to see it. One thing I do want the public to know of my fellow board members is everyone has had the one concept in mind, and that is, how do we use this to benefit the state of Utah? Not just one community or one area, but how do we benefit the state of Utah in the most efficient and economically viable way? And that's what this board's been dedicated to. I'm grateful to all of you for your efforts and your goal and concept. Our consultants have done a good job as well. And we've had a lot of community input. When you look at the community engagement, I want to shout out to our communications team, X Factor and Muriel. We have reached out to people and they've had a chance to say what they think. And we've had a chance to listen. And, people always say we in government don't listen. I think sometimes that means that they think that we aren't listening when we don't agree, but we hear, we listen, and we've taken a lot of elements of what the public has been interested in and put them into this plan. So the public's been heard, and I'm really pleased with how we've done it. And, I think it's just a good opportunity going forward. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor, for the motion. Do I have a second to the motion? April, your hand is raised.
I'd like to second the motion, but
you're
also
welcome
I'd
to-
like to say that sometimes it's like a few weeks between meetings, or that we've been able to see things like this. And I feel like sometimes I'm voting on something where I've seen screens that are just flipping in front of me for 3 or 4 seconds. So is there a way we can distribute this whole plan, that SOM's presentation to the board? Like today, it would have been better, I think, to have it ahead of time, or maybe you guys did send it out, but I feel like sometimes it just blips in front of me and I'm trying to grasp it all and vote on it within a few minutes. And I very much support it, but now I'd also like a copy of it so I can really flip through the slides and understand it. We're trying to make decisions for the citizens and for the state and stuff. And I think some of us have a better grasp on some concepts in there. And other times I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was going in there.
Thank you, April, for the second and also for your comments. I think that's an important thing that maybe we can work on, is making sure that we get those materials out in advance. With respect to this presentation, I know that Alan and our staff will make sure that those are distributed to members of the board. So the motion before us is to approve the stage 5, the point framework master plan. Further discussion to the motion from any of the board members? I don't see any hands and no one speaking up, so we will place that motion for a vote. All in favor of that motion say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And Representative Handy, I apologize if I missed your hand. Did I miss your hand?
No, I'm just having technical problem. It's down, 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 down.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to the next matter on the agenda, which is the report on the plan rollout now, the public open house and other organizational initiatives. We'll turn the time and the mic to Muriel Xochimil, who has been our amazing communications director. And so why don't you come up to the mic next to Peter, if that's okay, Muriel? And while she's doing that, the mayor said something as part of his statement in support of the motion about the amount of public outreach. And it has been, in my opinion, phenomenal. And much of that has been directed by Muriel and by her team. And by the way, Muriel, from time to time, we receive compliments on the extent of our outreach and our efforts to be transparent. And I think you have, I think when we brought you on, we indicated to you that that would be paramount in terms of our priorities. And I think you have helped us fulfill that. I don't know whether you want to talk about it, but you can talk about the amount of public input that we've had. But the last thing the mayor said was right, and that is we didn't come up with these elements. The public came up with these elements, and leaders in our state came up with those. So those were driven to a large extent by the board, but they found their genesis in the people. So with that, Muriel, I'll turn the time to you. Let me get your mic on. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. No, I appreciate those comments. We take our commitment to being open and transparent, which is one of the board's guiding principles, very seriously. The site is owned by all Utahns, and we want to make sure that Utahns have a voice in this process. And we can say through the visioning and planning processes that over 10,000 Utahns have added their voice, which is great. And, you know, like you say, Chair Snow, a lot of that is directly reflected in the framework plan. Some of our signature elements, the river to range concept, the extensive trails and parks and open space throughout the site, right? So I will speak to maybe just briefly on our public engagement efforts to date, just taking a couple of minutes. So whereas this is arguably the most significant economic and quality of life opportunity in state history, like we say, we want this to reflect what Utahns value and what they have as their priorities. So as Mayor Walker mentioned earlier, you know, COVID was kind of a punch in the face, right? We had anticipated several in-person engagement opportunities for the public through the planning process, and you know, quickly made those virtual and really try to take advantage of the upside of virtual meetings. So we had a number of virtual open houses with about 100 members of the public participating. All of our board meetings and the 5 working groups, whenever they met, we had all of that live streamed in real time for the public to see on all of our social platforms. And the great thing is we can kind of measure, you know, in talking about how do we measure success, we can measure quantitatively a lot of our public engagement efforts because of technology. And I just want to share my screen. And here are just some key metrics to date in terms of our public engagement efforts. So you'll see that we have engaged with nearly 260,000 engagements. This could be like people who are liking our social media posts, making comments, or viewing, the videos that we post, the content we post on our social platforms. So a lot of engagements there. News stories, our team, when we look at these news stories, they are almost 100% positive coverage of, your guys' work to date. Between all of the presentations Alan has given to city councils and industry groups and others, over 55 of those this past year. Website visits, those are constantly increasing. We've had stakeholder meetings one-on-one with area property owners, transportation agencies. A lot of that work has been done by Pete's team through the planning process to ensure that those key stakeholders' input is included in the plan. We've had over 83 public meetings between our board meetings, the working group meetings, the stakeholder advisory committee that we assembled for the planning process. And then we regularly send out an email update to over 1,600 subscribers. So really, tried to make sure that everything we did was out there for the public to see and that we duly reflected the public's input in the framework plan. We have a series of media engagements that we've either done this past week and a half or will do over the next couple of weeks. We've really taken a multi-channel approach to our communications efforts in trying to get to people where they are on the mediums that they most readily use, whether that's print newspapers with your local newspaper, whether that's someone who's perusing their Facebook feed, they'll see content from us. We've really tried to get that in front of people. So this upcoming Thursday night, we have an engagement opportunity that we've tried to, spread the word about far and wide. We regularly provide on a monthly basis what we call our external partner content to cities and other partners, that they can then pass along to their respective lists of folks. So we've really tried to spread the word very broadly. This open house is an in-person one with, of course, the appropriate COVID protocols in place. We'll have copious amounts of hand sanitizer. We'll have face masks for anyone who wants one, and try and stay as much as possible appropriately socially distanced. So that will be at the Fred House Training Academy, which is officially part of the prison facilities. It's just on the east side of the freeway, and we'll provide a good kind of aerial lookout on the site. We anticipate a couple hundred members of the public at least coming in person to engage with us, with several board members. Thank you for making yourself available for that opportunity, and with Pete's team who are flying in for the event. We see this as a top priority, now that you guys have officially adopted the framework plan, to be able to engage in person with the public about it. So we'll have that opportunity. And, in terms of the format, we will be providing live streaming as an option for those who just want to participate remotely, or even just like view the proceedings in the comfort of their couch in their own home on their own time. So we'll have both options available. And we'll be providing, in terms of the format, some structured and unstructured content. So both Alan and Steve will be doing a presentation similar to one that you saw this morning, showing kind of basic elements of the framework plan, just so that members of the public who participate with us will have a basic understanding of what we're doing. Then, of course, the majority of that 3-hour opportunity will be for members of the public to just talk with us, ask us their questions in person, see, open house boards with the maps, and really kind of dive into a little bit more detail. We feel like that's a really important aspect of our public engagement work. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Muriel, and thank you again for your work. Someone told me that at this event, there will be light refreshments too, so.
Lots of refined sugar.
Okay, for some, that's
Excited about
important.
that.
All right, thank you. Board members, comments or questions for Muriel? Mayor Ramsey.
I just want to say thank you to Muriel and her team. One of the very most important priorities that we've had since day one as a board is to be as transparent and collaborative as possible. We want the people of Utah to know everything about what we're doing, this whole process. We have not done anything secretively. We have, and the fact that you've live streamed every meeting we've had. I mean, it's been above and beyond, and it's very impressive. It's more than organizations do, and it's more than organizations are required to do. And I just have to say thank you, because surely there will be some people who feel like maybe they didn't know or didn't have information they wish they had. But that is not because it hasn't been made available. Muriel's team has worked incredibly hard, and those numbers are impressive. I love that you can track that through analytics and really have the data to show what the engagement has been. It's proof that justifies what we know, and that's that it has been as transparent as possible. So thank you for that, and for helping us accomplish that mission, which was key to this board. I think that's one thing we all have been fully committed to succeeding with this project, and to doing it as openly and transparent and collaboratively with the public as possible, to benefit, as Mayor Walker said earlier, the residents of Utah. You've played such a key role, such an important role in that. Thank you to you and your team.
Thank you, Mayor Ramsey. Thank you. Muriel, any follow-up? Did we make it clear where this event was going to be and the time?
Sorry, yes, this Thursday, August 12th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Fred House Academy in Draper.
Thank you. Further comments from the board? Questions? All right, I don't see any further comments. So Muriel, thank you for your presentation and for your excellent work. The last item on the agenda is to adjourn. Before we do that, I'm going to go to Alan and see if there's anything, follow-up comments that he would like to make, that information that we should know.
Thank you, Representative. I can't go on without adding my thanks to those that have been shared. What a great team that we've had. Everybody stepped up, put in a lot of extra time. And I've felt that from our consultants, this hasn't been just another job, but it's a labor of love, and one that they've committed to. And certainly I want to thank the board. I've been on a lot of boards, but none that's been more involved in the details, willing to spend time, and some of the busiest people I know who have given and given to make sure that this can be successful. I think it's been said, but I'll say it again. We talk in this plan about road systems and transit and FARs and get into the details of planning. But the driving principle is to make life better for the people of Utah. And that's what drives all of our decisions and all of our passion for this project. Now that we have a plan in place, what's next? We're involved in a number of follow-up steps that are going to be really important and continue to keep us very busy. As we discussed at our last meeting, we've released in the last week the RFPs for a number of studies to supplement the work that's been done, including getting into more details on sustainability, smart cities, micro mobility, the retail, association fees that might be needed to support this plan. All of that is going to provide information to allow the board to make really key decisions. As we move forward, we're necessarily going to be facing some trade-offs. What level of sustainability do we want? What level of smart city technologies? And understanding the costs and benefits of those different items are going to help you make informed decisions. We're going to outline design guidelines that will be the framework for developers and others who come in. All of that, I think, is going to be really helpful. We're also very soon going to be reaching out to the development community to identify the best partners to help make this vision a reality. And some that have the experience, but also the commitment to do what it is that we're trying to accomplish. That's going to be a detailed process. We're going to ask them to come in with their best and brightest. We're going to ask them to share their experience. We're going to ask them to share their ideas on how we might be able to improve our direction. So over the next few months, we'll be outlining that document. We're continuing to work on our legal structure, making sure that our partnership that has been so constructive with Draper City can be documented and clear going forward, that the development agreements that we'll be entering into with developers are outlined, and so they know what they're getting into and how that relationship can be most productive. So this is going to continue to be a very busy period, but an exciting one as we to implementation. So again, my thanks, and I welcome further input.
Thank you, Alan, for those concluding statements. I would entertain a final motion.
I'd like to make the final motion, but before I want to say, I think this might be the smallest government entity in Utah. We only have 2 employees and some consultants. So I want to tell you, thanks, Alan, for really steering this ship for a long time, sort of by yourself, and with good support from our consulting groups and our communications team. But I think the public should be proud of we've used the money wisely. We've gotten a lot out of you. Hope to get more. And I think we've really gotten a lot for our dollar. So with that, I'd like to move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second. This is April.
Thank you, April, for the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. Members of the public, thank you for joining, and our consultants, members of the board, thank you.